Aloha and good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Lyle Hosoda. I am a local attorney. This is my 38th year of being an attorney here in Honolulu, and I'm proud to be here as a part of the team. I have the privilege of introducing our entire legal team, but I wanted to start with my own team because in terms of caring, how can you tell whether somebody really cares about you and you can trust them? Well, both trust and caring for me over the 38 years really comes down to time. It takes time to develop relationships and develop trust and care. A part of my team sits next to me here. He has been my friend since 10 years old. We started playing pee-wee football and baseball and things like that together. We have played music together for 45 years. We're not going to break that out tonight, I promise. But he comes with sound system. And more importantly, his daughter sits over there and she's a part of our team now. This is Ka'ui. This is Hoku. And his wife, Debbie, stands over there. She is my paralegal. And what happened is we jumped into this cause of believing in you and fighting for this cause. And I said, look, during the day, you're my paralegal. During the nighttime, you are the host. And for all the food that's been ordered for every single time, Debbie's responsible. For the sound system that is provided and all the sound equipment, this is Hoku. He provides everything. And his daughter will be working and going to law school this summer. And I hope that she becomes a part of, well, standing behind the speaker over there, doubling as a sound person, technician, somebody who's handled the screens, all the IT computers. There is a Zoom virtual. There's, I don't know, some 50 to 100 people. I can't tell because I can't see that closely, but we're on Zoom. This person has a law degree from Hastings College in Southern California, and he doubles. He doesn't turn in his timesheets until just before midnight. That's how committed he is to the cause, but he doubles as the sound man and the IT person. This is Spencer Lau on mic. We got hooked. I was 3 years ago. What happened was I received a phone call from a person unknown to me who sits here today. Her name is Kristina Baehr. Jim Baehr, who's the other, I'm going to change my name to Baehr so that we have the three Bears. Sorry. And they're going to tell you that they're not related. But I get this call from Kristina and she says, we're looking for local counsel. You know, when you hit it off with somebody, it just happens. Well, everything about Kristina and Jim said, these are caring professionals. I mean, in 38 years, I've seen a lot of lawyers and lawyers who will say that they care, or lawyers that, you know, are really good at legal research and writing, or some are really good with clients and some are really good in trial. You have a team, I believe, in my heart that has it all. And it starts with the energy and the passion and the caring that Kristina has. And let me just give you some examples, and some of you, please bear with me, that have heard this before. But Kristina is nonstop. She genuinely cares and she demonstrates it. First of all, this is her 5th time to come visit us here in Honolulu from Austin, Texas. Can we give her a round of applause for just going up? We as locals know that there are many that will say that they care and they never show up. Kristina has been here 5 times and she doesn't stay for a day or two. This is 10 days this time. The other thing I can tell you is that she's around the clock in terms of passion and energy and commitment to this cause. And I can tell you that because we stand 5 time zones apart. It's 5 hours difference to Texas. When I wake up, and I'm an old man now, so I wake up at 4:30, I've already have 27 emails from Kristina or Jim. And that email does not stop. And I'm looking at the clock going like, wait, at some time she must go to sleep. That's how much passion she has. And each one of you has a story about Kristina because you all have her cell phone number and she answers and responds to you. That's somebody that cares. That's somebody that genuinely cares and that you can trust. I can't say enough about Jim here. Jim has done, I don't know how many of you have read the lawsuit or read the motions that have been filed. This is the researcher and author of all of that. So put your hands together for somebody. I'm just the introducer, so I don't want to stay up here too long, but I just want to tell you that from a guy who's been doing this for 38 years, that's lived island, and one day we will play for you and sing to prove you how deep our roots go here. But I want to tell you that you have a team that's passionate, that a team that's committed, that a team that will go to all lengths for you. And I want to thank you because a number of you have been here from the beginning. And that took tremendous courage, right? I mean, now that we have a lawsuit on file, now that everybody's gone through the administrative process of submitting claims, and now that people have experienced retaliation, and I know that it's not over. I can tell you that right now. We have stories coming that people are still getting retaliated against just for doing the right thing, you know? But for those that came first, for those of you that have stood here from the beginning and not been afraid and have endured that retaliation, I can't thank you enough. Courageous. But I want to introduce the main warrior who never quits, who has put together and assembled this great team that I'm just so proud to be a part of. She is nonstop. She cares. She's committed. I'm proud to say that she's my co-counsel and she's my friend. Please put your hands together for Kristina Baehr.
Well, we're now all kind of soulmates. Up to 60% of the human adult body is water. The brain and heart are composed of 73% water. The lungs are 83% water. The skin is 64% water. Kidneys are 79% water. And the bones, this was surprising, are 31% water. Think about what that means if the water is toxic. If the water is toxic, that means that your lungs are toxic. Your skin is toxic. Your muscles are toxic. Your kidneys are toxic. Your bones are toxic. So many of you drank this contaminated water and you literally said you could feel it in your bones. That's why. And that's real. So what is this case about? Generally, it's about accountability. It's about truth. It's about calling those who hurt you to account. But the Federal Tort Claims Act is designed for this very purpose. It says that if you were harmed by the negligence of a federal officer, you can bring a claim against the United States for the harm. It's as simple as that. We talk about it being courageous, and it is courageous, but it's also your right. It's like to not do it could be like telling the government you don't want tax rebate. Like this is a system and a law that the government designed for you so that you could be compensated if you were harmed by the negligence of a federal officer. So what are we going to do tonight? First, we're going to talk about what happened today, which is the fact that active service members brought claims, and Jim's going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about more questions and how you can join if you're interested in joining. We have a lot of people online. We have a lot of people here who are thinking about joining the lawsuit. It's not hard. We want to make it as easy as possible for you. And it has to be done now because the deadline is November. And if you wait until after November, you're going to lose your right to bring a claim for many of you. There is a statute of limitations, and it started clicking in November of 2021, and it will be over in November of 2023. So you have to bring a claim now if you want to exercise your right under the Federal Tort Claims Act. And again, it's your right. So with that, we're going to start with Jim. He's going to talk about the Federal Tort Claims Act and how it applies to service members in particular. And then we're going to hear from Mandy and Coda, who filed their claims today in a really historic and I think heroic act. And then we're going to open it up to this group here in person and talk about the way that this has disrupted your life, the way that this has disrupted and affected your bodies, and then the fears that you have going forward. And we'll answer questions and hopefully have a really wonderful conversation amongst the people who were affected. So with that, let me turn it over to Jim to talk about. Jim, don't you know that there's something called the Ferris Doctrine? Are you an idiot? Why do you think we can bring claims for active service members?
Okay, so we wanted to talk about this instead. I've served in the military for many years, 15 years. I'm in the reserves, started as a military lawyer, currently serve as a military judge in the reserves. And originally, when you talk to people about active service members, can we bring a claim against the government? No, you can't. It's possible. There's a case in 1950 called Ferris that says that you can't do that. Well, I actually looked closer, and a lot of our clients were excited about the possibility of bringing this action. So we looked at it very closely. If you look closer, there are cases in which you can bring a claim. And the question comes down to a four-part test. And in the Ninth Circuit, the court will analyze it under that four-part test. The place where the negligent act occurred, they'll evaluate the duty status. They'll evaluate whether an individual or service member was there as a benefit of their service. And they'll evaluate the nature of the activities of the claimant. And those are the four factors. As we started to think about this case, think through those factors, it became very clear that the Ferris Doctrine is not applied. If you think about it, these individuals were in their home, they were bathing, they were drinking, they were eating with their family, they were cooking. And all of these activities are in no way related to their military service. They're not incident to service. So before the Ferris Doctrine came out, there was another case called Brooks, in which the government allowed service members to bring a claim against the government. And the question was it incident to service? So there's cases in the Ninth Circuit that are very good for us, and our clients were excited about bringing this case. So we decided to bring this, and on behalf of Coda and on behalf of Mandy.
Now, we are eager to bring a claim for any active service member that wants to. We're happy to talk through with you the pros and the cons of that approach. People have questions about that. What does that mean for my VA claim? What does that mean for, we talked about retaliation. We'll say, there are folks who've had some unfortunate, retaliation in this case, but there are a lot of people who've just filed quietly. And for those folks, we've seen no retaliation just for the filing of a claim. We consider that like the filing of a VA claim. It's an administrative claim. Obviously, those who've been more outspoken have certainly faced serious challenges, and we certainly will talk about some of that tonight. But we're focusing very narrowly our active duty claims. We're not alleging medical negligence because that's something that Ferris blocks. We're bringing the action separately, so it doesn't affect your family's cases, because we don't want, a dismissal on this to affect the family cases. And we believe that we have a strong position to go to the Ninth Circuit and to go to the Supreme Court if we need to fight that the service members here were in a civilian capacity. They were no different than their civilian friends in Capilina who were living on those properties who were drinking that water. There's no logical reason under the Ferris Doctrine to block those folks from being able to bring those claims. And we're very proud of our clients who have decided to bring these first few claims and lead the way. And we'd be honored to bring additional ones. So
We can transition in.
absolutely. All right. So we are going to lead to our good friend, Major Amanda Feint, and tell us a little bit about your thought process here, Mandy, and your story with this process.
Can you guys hear me?
You're great.
Yes.
Hey everyone, my name is Mandy Feint. I so wish I was there in Hawaii with you, but I am dialing in from Colorado Springs, and the time here is almost 10:30. I just want to say thank you to both the Hosoda group and also Just Well Law for supporting us through this whole thing. You know, initially with our families, and now, you know, with Coda, myself, and Colonel Whaley with this claim. They have been our lifeline. We'd be lost without them, and we couldn't be more grateful for them. So if there are folks in the room or online who are even thinking about doing this, you know, they don't pay me any money for saying this, although I wish they did, because the wallet's a little thin these days. But honestly, you're looking at the best. We say that all the time. We've been blessed with the best. This has been the easiest decision that we have made throughout this entire process. These folks come with a wealth of knowledge. They care. And back to knowledge too, you know, you've got Jim, like you said, who serves in the military, and then you've got, goodness gracious, years and years of experience and really great degrees from really wonderful colleges, from our other lawyers as well. And so they've been available to us. They've become family to us. And again, we couldn't be more grateful. As far as what happened today, you know, I have been laser focused from the very beginning on my family first, and then advocating for others, for my brother and sisters in arms, and then for our civilians there in Hawaii who equally feel the impact and who have the same fear I do as a mother. I went, and the reason I sort of decided to do this, you know, as an active duty service member, sure, I have not been the quiet one, so I've been your squeaky wheel, one of them at least. So I have faced a lot of that retaliation. The risk to my career has been great, but honestly, I've said before that the risk in not speaking out is far greater. I went, just a little bit about me, I went from having 2 longstanding issues on my medical health record for 16 years prior to being exposed. And that was low back pain, probably from jumping out of perfectly good airplanes in the 82nd, and ADHD, which has been managed my entire life. The reason that I was fearful was a little bit about retaliation, but also with the Ferris doctrine, right? I didn't think I was able to file suit. But when we started really looking at, as Jim said, you know, I was poisoned. We were poisoned in the comfort of our own homes. We were in a place where we thought we were safe. As Kristina loves to say, we were naked in our showers. We were, you know, preparing meals for our children, and we were laying our heads down at night, unknowing that we were subjecting ourselves and our kids to harm. We were unknowing, but the military knew. They knew the whole time. And when they failed to warn us, they took away my right as a parent to protect my children from harm. And that's something that I just cannot let go of. So that's one of the main reasons that I feel strongly in filing. I feel very confident in that. I also, you know, want to say that before I hand it over to Hoda, for those who follow me on social media, and I've met several of you, we've become good friends. I was invited down to Camp Lejeune last weekend. I spent 4 days with Jerry Ensminger and Mike Partain and the whole Camp Lejeune crew. And my family, my mom and dad came. We got a tour of the base. We got to see, you know, firsthand how Camp Lejeune impacted families. We went to, you know, a pretty large event, a pretty monumental event, and we met so many families, both active duty, civilians, children, who have been impacted by Camp Lejeune. And you know, I know that it is the elephant in the room. If you've seen their documentary, Simplify, if you haven't watched it, please do. The reality that those folks have faced is our future. And we have an opportunity now to intervene. We have an opportunity now to, they fought this for 25 years. They have unfortunately lost many children. I also went out to like the baby heaven there, and that just broke my heart. And as a mother of very young children, filing this claim is even more important to me now than ever. You know, we have spent, and I know the Freeman family, I'm very close with them, has as well. We have spent a lot of money out of pocket already when the military would not pay for air quality testing, refused us of our water test. I mean, my home was tested on the 10th of December, and to this day, I still don't know what those water test results are. We've paid for toxicology labs. The list goes on, and we have paid thousands of dollars, and will continue to do so because the military no longer gets to decide for my family. I do. The only problem is I don't have the money to do that, or to continue to sustain that. I told you I would sell my body parts to make sure that my kids are taken care of. And so filing this suit means that there will be compensation, and it means that we will, as a community, have the money to be able to take care of our families, to get them the best medical care, and to be different than Camp Lejeune. So I think that's all I have to say. I'm going to turn it over to Coda. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me? Thumbs up.
Sound great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hi, I'm Coda Freeman. And kind of just to really piggyback on what Mandy had said, just a big shout out and thanks goes out to the Just well.law team, Lyle and his team, just outstanding work throughout this whole process. I know we're just now getting into it. Mandy is definitely, like she said, she's been vocal throughout this whole point, and I've had my little spurts, but it's mostly been my wife that's kind of been outspoken and speaking in the media and stuff like that, trying to keep the story alive. But I mean, the main question really for everybody is, why are you filing? Obviously, it wasn't available to us, or we didn't know of the statute, right? And now we do. And really, the main point for me is that the government had the opportunity when they were holding these town halls early on, when they were sending out memos and stuff to warn us that the water wasn't safe to drink. They had that opportunity to do that, and they chose not to. And unfortunately, my family, your family, Mandy's family, really anybody that was living in that area, now we have to suffer those consequences for their decisions. So that's just the main key that kind of hits me, because maybe we could have caught some of this stuff a little bit earlier. There was a massive decline in the health of my family while we were in Hawaii from May of 21 to February of 22. And it just, kept going downhill until we luckily ran into one doctor at Tripler that stated that, hey, the only way that one of my wife's conditions was going to get better was for you guys to get off the island. We had to fight pretty hard to get off the island, and that's when some of the kickback from different facets of the military started to happen. And that was just, I think the situation was new. They didn't understand why we were pushing so hard to get off the island, and so that kind of just came to a head. But kind of going back to what Mandy was saying, a lot of the stuff that we've received now coming to the mainland has been essentially out of our own pockets. We have mounds of debt that are just accumulating. And as an active duty service member prior to this, I just had to essentially sit on the sidelines and watch my family deteriorate. And I know there's probably a lot of service members that have had to do the same thing and just kind of go to those doctor's appointments and get those will monitors, or we don't really know what's going on, but we'll keep trying to test. And that really that does a number on your mental and psychological. It has a really big impact and has big implications on your mental health. So you can only sustain that for so long, and that's another big reason why I went down this path, is because that has to be talked about. We're talking a lot about the physical issues that a lot of people are running into, but there's a lot of psychological issues that are going to come along with watching people and family members deteriorate and things along those lines. For people that want to join, please, talk to Kristina, talk to Lyle, talk to these guys. I know my instance was a little bit different. I am now stationed in San Diego, California. And when I heard about all this, I went and had an open conversation with my chain of command and told them exactly what I was going to do and what that looked like. So, I've talked to some reporters. I'm talking to you guys now. They know about all this. And I'm being very upfront and very open with them about it. So it's a little bit different atmosphere for me trying to bring this forward right now. Am I naive to the fact that there may be some kickback down the road? there might be. But you know, I'm gonna try to get ahead of that. And that's what the conversation with my chain of command was about. But I think that's pretty much what I have to say. I don't know if Kristina wants to jump back on. I think that was
Thank you, Coda.
no problem.
Okay, so let's get back to the case. I want to start by answering some of the frequently asked questions. So one, how much does it cost? It is free unless and until you recover, and then the cost is set by statute. If it's during the claims process, which hasn't happened for anybody, by the way, it's 20% plus costs, 20% of whatever you recover plus costs. And then if it's after a lawsuit's filed, then it's 25% plus costs. So now you're going to ask, well, what if the costs outweigh what we get? Like, will we get money? Or will we owe you any money? You will never owe us any money. Ever, 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 ever. There is never a situation where you're going to owe us money. So Jim and I have taken extraordinary risk, and Lyle has taken extraordinary risk so that you don't have to. So that's the cost. How do we do it? Well, the first thing we do for you is we file a claim to the Navy called an SF-95. Then the Navy has 6 months to adjudicate that claim. They will not do that. They will not come back and offer us any money during that time. They haven't so far for all the ones we've filed, hundreds of filings. Then 6 months later, we can add you to the federal lawsuit. Another question is, well, Kristina, I mean, that seems like a really long time. It is a really long time, and we have no idea how long it's going to take. But what we can tell you is that we are already at the table with the Navy. The Navy has said in a public filing in response to our lawsuit, the Navy told the court they acknowledged that this happened. The Secretary of the Navy acknowledged that the spill occurred and said in that filing that they want to work to resolve claims. That means that they want to compensate you for the harm that was caused. But it's now a question of when and how much. So we're already at the table with the government. We're already talking about that. We've already made our demands for you, and we're waiting for them to come with a counter. And we can talk more about that as the case proceeds. But we are actively working to resolve claims from the very beginning, because we know, as Coda and Manny just said, that your bills are mounting and you desperately want to get the right medical care. That brings another question. Well, what claims are you asserting? We are asserting negligence, something called nuisance, which is the interference with your use and enjoyment of your property when they injected jet fuel into your water and then forgot to tell you not to drink it, or intentionally didn't tell you not to drink it. They interfered with your use and enjoyment of your property. So that's called nuisance. Now, the damages for nuisance are disruption, illness, and fear. Those are the ones that we are really talking a lot about. How many of you have experienced disruption because of the jet fuel exposure? Okay, that's the whole room. And I know there are some people here who are not on the water line, and that's okay too. Which leads me to the next question. Can you bring a claim if you're not on the water line? Only in exceptional circumstances. We represent people who were on the water line between May and November of 2021. Yes, there are people who were not on the water line, and we will take those case by case. But as a general rule, we represent people who were on the water line from May and November of 2021. Do you have to be sick? No, you do not currently have to be sick. We think that this affected, as we just said, it disrupted your life, but it also, unfortunately, has put you at the risk of future harm. And you should be compensated for that. Can you wait until you get sick? The way we read the law, no. We think that there's a statute of limitation that expires in November. If there's a future court that says yes, I will be so glad I will be glad at that ruling, but I don't think we can rely on that. There is a statute of limitations and it expires in November. So with that, I'm going to look at the chat, see if there are any questions on the lawsuit itself, and also look to the room. Feel free to ask questions in the chat, and Evan will make sure that everybody has access to that chat. Any questions on the lawsuit itself before we get to the discussion? Yes.
I hear about dates when the jet fuel is allegedly in there. Is that hard and fast? And I'm not confident that the Navy told the truth in 1999, 1998. Is this limited to May through November 21 exposure? And is there any thought of looking at previous?
Great question. There was absolutely previous exposures. There were previous spills. There is no question about that. We do not doubt that for a second. The Federal Tort Claims Act has a defense called the discretionary function exception. And that applies to anything that the government does that's discretionary. So we were very careful when we asserted our claims to only assert the claims where the government said it was due to operator errors. The government said that May and November 2021 were due to operator errors. And to me, I used to represent the United States in these cases. And so to me, operator error says, oh, Kristina, that's negligence. That's particular people's on particular days violating the standard of care. That we assert under the Federal Tort Claims Act. We did that and we survived the motion to dismiss. I don't know if we would have survived if we asserted earlier claims. And I don't know whether we'll bring those claims in the future. I think it will depend on what the investigations show about how those spills happened. But I absolutely believe that there was harm. Okay, what else? Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm just not getting here, so I don't know if you covered this portion of the briefing, but is there any other law attorney organization in conjunction with you, or you guys working together as of now?
Yes. So Lyle and I are working together, right? Lyle has the Hosoda Law Group and then Just Well Law. And there are a couple of other law firms who have come to the table, and we are committed to working with anybody who's bringing claims in this case against the United States. So we will work with any who come along. We're eager to work with them. We're all on the same side and we want to be united against.
Kristina, we do have a few questions on the chat. Do you want to take these?
Yes.
Here we go. You can see this. Do parents include their children in their claim, or is it going to be a separate claim per child?
Great question. So each claim is asserted individually, but we present them together as a family. Thank you. We present the claims together as a family. So every person has their own form, but we then write an attachment that applies to your whole family. So the families always stay together. Another question?
Here we go. Can you read this one out loud from Anonymous? Do you see this? It says, we've been going to the ER numerous times, but they don't say anything about our sickness being due to the water, but we believe it is the water because we didn't have many health issues before. Are we able to add those visits to our claim?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whether you have a doctor who's attributing your symptoms or not, you absolutely have a claim and you should be adding those to the claim. Now, I would also encourage you though, go to a doctor who will listen to you and trust you and hear you. And there are doctors out there. We have compiled a list of doctors that were recommended by our own clients. We have that list in folders by the door here in person. If you email us, we will give that to you whether you are our client or not. Because our firm is called Just Well Law, because we truly just want you to get well. It is our number one priority. It guides everything that we do. We are focused first and foremost on you getting well. And when we think about compensation, we think about compensation so that you can go forth and get the healthcare you need to get well. Everything comes under that umbrella. And then, of course, justice and wellness. Justice, it brings accountability and brings things to light. But first and foremost, our whole firm is about wellness. What else?
Will there be a difference in compensation for those that are currently sick versus those that have not been sick or shown symptoms?
There will be a difference in compensation between people who bring claims. Absolutely. Because you know that some people were more harmed than others. There are people who've gone to hundreds of doctor's appointments. We have Dan here, who you can see has been affected greatly. And Dan will hopefully be awarded differently than somebody who's not yet sick. And that will be a function of a lot of different factors, including how long were you on the water line? Or were you living on the water line? There are a lot of non-economic factors here too. There were families who were separated from their kids, who the dad stayed here while the mom and the kids went to the mainland, and they were separated for months on end. There were families who experienced extraordinary trauma by having to give up everything and move to the mainland without a plan, right? Just to get out of the contamination. There were people who had to pay out of their leases because the government never worked with the landlords to require them to get you out of your leases. I mean, the trauma knows no bounds. So part of this is about economic harm and illness, but a lot of this is also about the mental harm that this has caused to so many of you. Other questions?
Do we all have to agree on a settlement before it is accepted? Is it a bellwether group or per family?
That's to be determined. We'll have to see as we go along. It depends on how the settlement is structured, which will depend on our communications with the government and what the parties all agree to. But what I can say about settlement, because I think I'm going to get a lot of questions about settlement, is that there is no amount that is ever going to be enough. There's no amount that's ever going to make this right. And that's going to be a sad day when I come to you with an amount that's not enough, because you're going to say that's not enough. And I've asked some of you, how much do you think your claim is worth? And some of you said $1 billion. And you know what? I agree. I think all of you deserve $1 billion because there's no amount of money that will ever make this right. And some of you are looking at Camp Lejeune and thinking about what your future is, and that's not fair. There's no price tag for that. So what I can say is that how I talk to you is how I talk to the government. And I get on the phone with them and I say, there's no amount that's ever going to be enough. And that's always my starting point, right? And this deserves significant compensation, and I'm going to go to the mat on that. But where we land will be a function of what the government agrees to, how long it takes, and where y'all are at that time. And I'm going to bring to you the best number that I can at that time. And I think that you're going to trust me. I think you're going to trust me because you're going to know that I went to the mat for you. And not just me, but our whole team.
There are two questions from people who are currently, they believe they're in the process somewhere with becoming active clients with Just Well, but they're not sure if you guys have all the documentation. One is a little bit nervous if they'll have everything ready in time for the November deadline. And they're learning how can they make sure they've got everything done and move forward.
That's a great question. So if you are wondering, if you're listening to this and you're wondering where you are in the process and you don't know, you should have received an email from Ben recently telling you exactly where you are in the process. If you didn't get that email Ben at well.law. Someone put that in the chat. Ben at well.law, and we'll tell you exactly where you are in the process. Will we get it all done in time? Yes, we will. Yes, we will. We are building a database right now so that we can use technology to get the data that we need to present the claims at settlement. And we will absolutely have everything done in time to meet the deadline. I have no doubt about that. And we are in the process of processing all these claims, and we're building the system so that we can process thousands more. Because I'm worried about the people on this water line who aren't bringing a claim. Because the deadline's in November, and if they don't bring a claim by November, they're gonna lose their right to bring a claim. And I don't want that to happen. So not only am I building a system that will get our current clients information in, all of the evidence we need in on time, but I'm also building a system that's gonna be able to accommodate as many as are willing to bring a claim. Yeah. I have a question here.
On that note, you stated that there was a 6-month period. Does that 6-month period have to begin or be finished by November?
That is a great question. When I negotiate with the government, I'm negotiating for everybody who's in any part of the process, even if they just signed on with me. The November deadline is for filing the SF-95. So it's the first claim. So the 6-month begins in November.
Okay.
As the deadline. Yeah.
My question is about long-term effects,
Yeah.
because, as a father, that's what I care about. For us, we care about our kids more than we care about ourselves, type of thing. My wife had extreme, aggressive skin cancer. She had to get stuff removed off her body because of it. And it was because of the water. But I'm also really concerned about the kids, because something that was maybe seemed minor, that the doctors were like, this is not that big of an issue. But what if it starts affecting them later on down the road? I have a 9-year-old and a 15-year-old. My 15-year-old got a few more years in my house and then he's gone. Then what happens? What if something happens after that? What if something happens with my 9-year-old? So I understand we have that deadline in November, and we're definitely going to be filing. We're definitely doing all that. We're going through that process. But at the same time, what does that mean long-term for families all around?
It's a great question, and it's something that we're wrestling with. And so, as a lawyer, as your lawyer, I'm not always going to have the answers, and I don't have an answer to that question. It's something that we are legally wrestling with about taking care of the children. It's something we care a lot about. I don't know if y'all know how I got into this case, but I'm a survivor of toxic exposure myself. And 3 of my family members have brain damage from their exposure. And somebody saw my story and gave Jamie Simic my name and my number on a Post-it note. And Jamie Simic is the bravest woman alive, because at that time, no one was bringing a claim. And she called me from her hospital bed and she said, "I've been poisoned, can you help?" And Jamie Simic is an American hero, and we owe this whole case to her. Because we would not be here. We would not be here, but for Jamie Simic. We would not have been brought to this island. And by we, I mean Jim and me, and thereby Lyle. We would not have been in this fight. And early on, y'all might not know this, but other lawyers did not believe in this case. Right. They didn't believe in it for 2 reasons. One, it was against the government. And who brings a case against the government? You're an idiot to bring a case against the government. And 2, they didn't believe that anyone was truly sick. And we stood up here and we held up Wikipedia and we said, this is not rocket science. When Diane Felton says there's no science, or your doctors at the military say that there's no science, that is wrong. That is not true. You can look up PubMed. We have in this folder, and we'll email it to you if you're online. We have the 100, most prevalent studies put together by Kelly over here, who's our Dartmouth environmental fellow, who's a rock star. Y'all, it didn't even take her that long to put it together. It was not hard. I mean, she's brilliant, but it wasn't hard. There are more than 100 studies out there about the effect of jet fuel on your body. Because again, our brains are made of water, Our lungs are made of water, our liver's made of water, our bones are made of water. So if you have jet fuel in your water, or toxins in your water of any kind, that's affecting all of those areas of your body. And that is exactly what the research shows. So this is not rocket science. Anyway, we believed that early on, and then Jim is in the military himself, and I used to represent the government in these claims under the Federal Tort Claims Act. And so we just knew that we knew that this was a case, and we just believed you. And we were willing to do it even when it was really risky. So that's how we ended up here. And now we represent 2,000, and we hope to represent thousands more, because, well, and the people who aren't sick are worried about being sick. And that's a claim in itself. So with that, I want to turn to the group and hear your stories, because we've checked in with many of you, but we haven't heard in a while. How this, and we're going to go through all three: disruption, illness, and fear. So let's start with disruption. How has this disrupted your life? And I have a mic. How has this disrupted your life?
I want to address something you said before about the evidence. I walked into the laundry room, right after the happened, and there's just a room full of women. And what I was talking, I had been and we didn't even find out. I found out because I made Facebook page. Okay, so I joined it and then and I knew something. You just called it from the state. You see, once you see the water, from the state, and you turn away. And I'm like, oh, no. And I threw it out. I was because you know, my baby hasn't been exposed to this, they were bathing. So that was the beginning of it, but it just disrupted everything. And I don't think, this is my personal opinion, but I don't think the one thing today. I honestly, I still have things happening, and I have anxiety. I mean, so it's really disrupted everything. I mean, how do you have when you're living in housing, you've got to explain, okay, we've got bottled water pressure. You've got, you know, I don't drink the water. That's
Well, how's this disrupted your life?
Aloha. I noticed there's some local faces in this room tonight. I'm born and raised from this island, born in 1976. Hundreds of my family are on this island. Well, I live balanced. We were military family. My husband retired October 2021, and I'm born and raised from this island. You know, I'm full on island Hawaiian girl. And how this has disrupted me, I heard of the Red Hill going on in 2014 while we were stationed, Navy station in San Diego on Facebook, but I didn't understand it. I thought it was coming from Pearl Harbor. And then I was like, oh, dramas, everything will be fine. You know, I trusted the Navy. I trusted our local state officials will get it right too, and our Congress will get it right. I'm a Hawaii voter since 1994. But dude, I can just go on with the timeline. I mean, I don't know how this has disrupted me. I mean, it shook me in all sorts of ways, you know, emotionally, mentally, physically, and it's just always on my mind, you know. I mean, this goes back for me. I mean, if you want to go back to history, it goes back for me since 1985, going to a private school on Pearl Harbor. I had nothing to do with the military life, but I knew the water was terrible. I didn't like it. The grass smelled like chemicals. And then you go back throughout the 1990s, I was visiting my best friend's two sisters who are Army wife, Navy wife at AMR Army housing. We did slumber parties, house parties, you name it, you know? But they always told me, the two older Samoan sisters, they said, we do not drink and cook with the tap water. So they knew something was up. I didn't know. I was like, okay, I don't like military water anyways. It tastes like swimming pool. So, and then we go back to 2005. I became a Navy wife on this island. And I was working at the big Navy exchange in their office. And I was pregnant with my youngest son. And good thing this was a 10th agency job, because while I was working there, I was eating at their food court. I was eating at Honolulu Shopping Center and drinking their beverages on the tap. So there you go. That's how I got exposed in 2005. And then coming back home, being stationed here, August 2015 to present, we're still living on the Navy drinking water line. And they keep saying, I keep telling the admirals and all them, it is not, you guys can say it's safe. My family who retired from the oil company, my best friends that I've known for decades, that are now military veterans still on this island, who owns their own plumbing system, plumbing job, and is an engineer in the local community, told me it's in the pipes. The toxins have collected for decades in the pipes. A Navy worker, which I would not say because everything has to go to our law firm first, told me a month ago by phone how sorry they are. He's really a part of the Red Hill, and because he knows me since 2019, running the neighborhood watch for my Navy housing. And he said, it's always been the pipes. That's what he told me. So anyways, I just want to say that for my cooking and drinking water, I buy Hawaii Island, Big Island, glass bottle water. For showering, anything with our skin, oral hygiene and all that, mopping our floor, taking care of our dog, it's plastic bottle water, plastic bottle water cases. So that's how we're living. And I don't even trust my home island tap water any places. Thank you.
Okay, so he said something important. She said that the Navy water tastes like a swimming pool. That's actually because it's cleaned with chlorine. And what happens is it goes to a tank, and it's in that tank where it's treated with chlorine to disinfect it. And so you might not like it, the taste of it, but at least it's disinfected, right? It doesn't have bacteria. But when the jet fuel came into that same tank with the chlorine attached to the jet fuel. And as a result, that water that you drank at that time wasn't disinfected. And so there was bacteria in the water. So that those GI problems that everybody had is not just from the jet fuel, it's also from the bacteria that was in the water, because the chlorine wasn't able to do the job because it was so contaminated. And then we think that they added a bunch more chlorine because after that,
For me, disruption is kind of related to fear too, but I came to Hawaii healthy, a little overweight, but developed 2 cancers while living in the Navy housing area, kidney cancer and prostate cancer. And when the contamination was documented, I was very, very freaked out, very, very fearful. My wife left for the United States and didn't return. But I was offered to be taken care of, not at first because I'm a retiree, 33 years in uniform, and I stayed to be a GS employee and a retiree. But since I was a retiree at first, when this happened, they were saying, oh no, we can't do anything for you. You're just gonna have to stay there because you can't break your lease. About 3 or 4 days later, they said, no, we're taking care of everybody. Retiree, active duty, GS employees, we're gonna move you out of the cancer area. And when they offered that, I said, well, can I pick my own place to go to? They said, don't worry about anything. We're going to take care of you. You won't have a stove, you won't have a refrigerator, but we'll even give you per diem. You don't have to worry about a thing. We're going to tell you where to go, which they did until Christmas time. Then they said, you got to go. They need the rooms for Christmas. So what I did is I got out of here. I took a unpaid leave from work and just went home to the mainland for a while and came back. They said, okay, we're going to put you in a different hotel, which they did. While I was at that hotel, the housing company sent me a letter saying, we're going to raise your rent $300 and we're going to fine you unless you come in and sign another year-long lease. You have 2 weeks to sign for another lease. Said, they're not going to do that. How can I do that? I don't live there. It's contaminated. About a month later, they said, you have 2 days to get out of the hotel and go back home, which I did. I stayed there 1 month, paid the fine, and then left. I'm out of there now. But so I'm full of anxiety, fear, and I was, as you say, discomforted or whatever it was.
Make no mistake, the government could and should have dealt with that housing situation.
About 2 months ago, I got a 1099 for $10,500 out of the blue, and I still haven't gotten the official response. I called DFAS. There's no explanation for it. I'm hearing third hand that, oh, by the way, that hotel where they took care of you, you're paying for it now they're looking at it as income with no federal tax taken out, no state tax taken out. I haven't done my taxes yet. I don't think I'm going to make it by April 14th. I can't afford to pay my taxes this year.
Okay, well, don't pay those taxes because I think that Senator Hirono is going to resolve that. They're working on it right now. But the point is that the government let the privatized housing landlords do that to you. They force you to move back into the houses that made you sick. That's one of the things that really gets me. I mean, it's one thing to make you sick. It's another thing to force you to move back into the houses that made you sick and then force you to stay there because they're charging exorbitant fees to leave. And then, we talked about what claims we're bringing for people who went to hospitals and medical providers that were military. Most of them were denied even the basic labs. So when you go to get treated of jet fuel exposure, the military knows how to do this. They have a protocol. And if you were active service, you went and you got the protocol. You got CBC count, liver count, kidney function, you got your labs, you got sometimes a heavy metal screening. You also, some of you got, a CAT scan, but family members did not, got none of those things. And they, moms asked for just the labs, just can you do the CBC count, the kidney function, the liver count? And people were communicating with each other and educating each other about what they needed to ask for. And the military providers just denied it. And so a year later, when those people go to doctors and need surgery, the doctors ask for the baseline and you have no baseline because they didn't bother to just take your basic labs. So that's a big part of our claim, it's medical negligence. Another thing that you raised is prior exposure and prior conditions. And whatever you had going on in your life, whether it was something in your family or it was something in your health, we just threw jet fuel on it. So it's going to make your cancer worse. It's going to make your divorce situation worse. I mean, whatever's going on in your life, if you had trouble parenting, well, if you had special needs kids, well, now you're having to bring those special needs kids to the hotel and you're disrupting their routines. And then, of course, some of you can't even do that. You can't possibly go to the hotel with your special needs kid. So now you're staying at home in the contamination because you can't get to the hotel. So the stories know no bounds. So let's move on to illness. How has this affected your body?
The anxiety that I have is, like, I'm surprised I'm even talking right now. It's debilitating. The brain fog, I don't remember from probably right around Christmas until about June. I don't really have any memories. My family came and visited. I only remember 5 of those. It's a lot of that.
So if your body's made of water, water's toxic.
So I started over at AMR, and then we moved up to Tripler, down in the valley, Montaloo, and then over to Hickam, so that's where we currently reside for about 4 years or so. My wife started getting headaches and like burns on her skin. And then she started looking very closely at the reports. Whenever they were saying they're clearing the water, she'd go right to the website, to the Facebook pages and the family pages and say, hey, they just cleared our water. You see the residue rainbow in the water floating. You can light it with a match. And it just cleared that house. So she was having hair fall out in clumps. You think of somebody had a guinea pig laying around the house somewhere. And then I had her go down to the hotel. Her hair didn't fall out once. So it was a definite cross change our lives. You know, we're staying at the hotels. You can't bring your own food. You have to go out every night and do like that. That's not covered. So we still have a lot of skin problems, issues. I have a lot of nerve damage and issues like that. But I never got tested yet. So that's one thing I never really thought about to do. So that's my next step.
I can't stress enough how important it is to go to a doctor and document your symptoms and get a diagnosis from a doctor who actually cares. Because there are doctors who care. And one of the questions that the government's going to be asking upon settlement is, did somebody link your symptoms to your exposure? And if you have that, your claim is going to be more valuable, truly, because you have the evidence. So don't wait to go to a provider. Go to a provider and go to one who you think will really listen to you. It's important, and you owe it to yourself for your own health, but you also owe it to yourself so that you can bring forth a good case.
Thank you. I want to thank you first for doing so much for us. It's very emotional. So I'll try to keep it together. We had a really good Thanksgiving that year. You know, we made a really good turkey. My husband soaked the turkey in what we thought was fresh water and broth for 24 hours. Found a cool, recipe on YouTube. We're so excited, and made some margaritas, and we had a good Thanksgiving. And then I was at Walmart on Black Friday buying cool Christmas decorations, and I come home and I pull back in the driveway and I see a news clip about something with my water. Why did it have to come from the news? That's my first part of disruption. Like, that trust was completely gone now. And we've never lived in military housing, but just decided to do it in Honolulu. And so of course, I was wondering why he had a rash in his mouth all week on it. I thought it was a new water bottle that he had. The dogs weren't drinking the water. I had a headache. And so those were our initial symptoms. Kids, had diarrhea. Those are our initial fears. And then a couple months into it, I had some skin rashes. So I decided, all this is going on. We're going to go to the dermatologist, not at Tripler, because we can't trust them right now. And they started testing me and were concerned about a lot of the spots on my body. And they started testing them, and I had, so far I've had 2 basal cell carcinomas removed. And I asked him, I said, is this something that I've just developed this over time, or is this something that has come about? It's like, these spots didn't just develop now. They had already been there, but if there was something that was toxic or something, that's what I did the situation. I said, okay, well, is it possible that this could have been the fuel, in the water that I moved? And he's like, I can't say firsthand if you were exposed to toxins, then clearly that's why that these are exacerbating the way that they are, and we have to have them cut off. And I think, thanks. So it's hard to trust the disruption and not knowing, how my children are going to grow into this is very hard. You want to be able to trust where you live and to be able to protect your children. And having that revoked is really.
And you're still stuck there.
And you're still stuck. Yeah.
Can't leave.
I really appreciate where my children go to school. So we were at least just trying to find a rental, you know, we weren't in the affordability to buy a house. We were leaving in the 2 years, so I didn't want to lose my children in their wonderful schools. And there's no rentals, nothing. I had to go back to my toxic house. And not knowing it's still safe today, it's not. It's not. The shower filter that I bought on Amazon is not protecting my skin. I have a rash on my skin right now. It's not doing that. So if you haven't made the claim or taking care of your family, please do it. Please do it.
You know, are the houses safe? They cleared those houses without remediating them. They put hoses and attached them to water heaters and then put the water heaters directly, the toxic water from the water heaters directly into the yard. And the more I learn and the more I study the science of it, and I talk to our experts and talk with engineers, the more outrageous that is. We know how to remediate toxic exposure sites. We've actually done it before. The Air Force Base in Alaska, we came in and put air filtration systems on every house, right? And then we provided bottled water for free. We know how to do this, and we just did it here. We just decided not to. Why? Why didn't we do it the right way? We know how to do it. That's my problem with the medical treatment too. We know how to do it. We have protocols. Why are we not following our own protocols when we're responsible for poisoning people? And I say we because I actually love the United States and I love the government and I represented the government. And I think for that reason, I feel even more disappointed because they knew how to do the right thing. They didn't.
I agree wholeheartedly. Just to share a little bit about my story. I lived in AMR. I lived in Navy housing. Basically, my whole career, I was in Navy Army house. And we picked up symptoms and go to the doctor, of course, general practice, not a professional. They look at the same Google research as we look, and they say, here you go. My biggest crime to the day, retaliation. I don't care what no one says, retaliation. They ain't got to come directly at you. They can hit all angles, every angle. And if you expose them, you're going to feel it. Because I'm the type of person, I'm inquisitive. I go deep. I find out so much, it's not even funny. Even when the teams came and flushed the water out of AMR, they was fighting against big military officials that this is not doing. It's just a show. We come in here, run the hose, run it out. The military told them, do not run the hot water because it makes the vapor go in the air. So why not run the hot water? We're going to smell it when we get the hot water. So why you don't run the hot water? So you can understand what's coming through the pipe. Then at the same time, two different big signals, get rid of all your plastic, all that. So we got rid of everything. Then come back, we got the word, science said, you don't have to do that. Just use soap and water. So we asked, what kind of soap? You know, can you provide that? Please give us the soap that can cure the dishes and so it's coming from you. So that's a whole nother cup of tea. The guys, again, who come here, who help the facility flush the tank, they already knew what was going on. They was enlightening us. This is nothing. You guys, this is a waste of time. This is the showmanship. That's a experiment stage. But in my particular case, we got put in a hotel. Some of these, I met a few of these personnel and good fine people in the hotel. My biggest fear was getting put in a hotel. And you get in a hotel, that was the height of COVID, of catching COVID. We end up getting caught up in COVID and stuck in a room for a while. No military came through and say, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. So they said, just stay in the room, stay put. I had a grandchild, 1 year old. Granddaughter just had a child. So we were like 7, 8 feet in hotels down here. And the biggest thing was exposed to COVID. So we was trapped. They never documented it. They never say, okay, we're gonna put down, when you get done, you go to the doctor, you got COVID, They never put anything down. So when we finally got a chance to go back and see triple the staff team, they checked us over on AMR. They wrote a lot of stuff on the paper generically, saying they're gonna do this, do that, do that. So when I went and got my record, look back, it's like they watered everything down before they officially put it in. They went ahead and I guess what they call it, archived it, purge. You know, so when you look at it, somebody else looking around, oh, they just minor this, minor that. But when they were talking to you, when they were doing all the format, they was like, wow, you know, they seen, you know, the neck, the eye burning, the sensation. In my particular case, every time you look at news, that's my unit, they showing on the news, you know, so they knew all this, but now it's like.
Alone. Military family. In fact, my sister and I are the only two who didn't join the British military. I chose this day to come here and support this country. And I came here the proper way. I didn't climb any fences. I didn't dig any tunnels. I came with the proper paperwork and married my husband and wanted to serve also, families serve also. That I feel like that it's a double slap in the face to me that I've come here to this country with good intentions. And now myself and my family are poisoned to the point where I might lose them in the future. If you are active duty, if you haven't filed a claim, I implore you to consider doing that because these are the people who are going to help you. Thank you.
Fear, future fear. We'll take a couple more.
I heard a lot of you parents saying like you're fearful for your kids and stuff. And as a kid, I can say that growing up and being at the point in your life where everything is so critical, being not able to trust certain people around you, like people that give you your house and stuff, it's a little bit fearful. So going forward, everyone's gonna remember this point in our lives. And this is a critical moment for like all of us. And so if it just feels like the water, the poison has eroded a lot of every aspect of all of our lives. And that's what I say. Thank you.
You know what yeah.
I have to sit down again. I want to get the Scottish about fear. We talk about our children, that we'd give our arm for our children. And my two youngest children are full of gasoline, percolate, and now we know these other agents, the front page of the paper. And I've known about it a long time. I was one of the first people to talk to Diana Pilton, who blew me off. The old Department of Health director blew me off. Okay, and I said, why do my kids have gas in their body? When we talk about toxins, talked about our body being full of water, and our body is full of fat, and your brain is the fattiest part of your body. These toxins go to the brain, okay? And you want to talk about fear. I left here when school ended in May and took my son to Florida to get treatment. And he had a port put in, had IVs every day. Thought we'd be there for 2 months, ended up being there for 5. We removed a lot of toxins, and I just gave them to Lyle. I want everyone to look at, you're free to look at my kids' labs and see what happened to these 2 little boys. My labs are just as bad. I worked at Hickam for 10 years. I was pregnant with the youngest one there. I was nursing, drinking lots of water. Labs are just as bad. The government is responsible for poisoning people. It's not the last 2 they're looking at. We know it's been going on a long time. And I had no idea that I was part of any of that. I thought it was encapsulated to Red Hill. It's at Hickam, Iroquois Point, Barbers Point, it's in the pipes, it's everywhere. Okay, and now you've admitted that you also put antifreeze in. Okay, this is the fear. I took my retirement. I went there. I spent a ton of money trying to help my son. And then I said, you know, you gotta look at my youngest. Their mouth fell open when they saw the amount of gasoline in him. My son was labeled autistic. Okay, we had to stop suddenly because the school said, if you don't come back to Hawaii, we will disenroll him. How do you do that? The kid's under medical treatment. So I couldn't afford him to go back to that nasty school, so I had to take him out of Florida and come back. And they said, whatever you do, don't stop treatment suddenly. You talk about fear, hypervigilance. The kid has broken out all the windows in my house. He elopes from my house day and night. You wake up, he's gone. The police have come to my house so many times returning my son, who runs across the road in front of cars. Okay? I couldn't take it anymore. I just admitted him to Queens. I've had 2 hours of sleep. I'm in the psych ward in Queens. That's where my 15-year-old is. This is what poisoning does. And I want the government to take responsibility. I want help. I served 27 years. I shouldn't be ignored. I was the first voice telling these assholes, look what's in the water. Okay? That's all I gotta say.
Oh, man. I'll come back and close this out here. This has been going on for a really long time. And we're well aware of that. And we're aware that it extends beyond Red Hill. And we know that there are lots of spills that have happened. There are AFFF spills, there's AFFF in the water right now in wells. We know that the government has not been forthcoming, and that's the understatement of the century. And so we're doing our part, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to go to the mat for you all, and we're going to see this case through. And, you know, many of you are going to say, well, what about Kristina? What about this? What about that? We're going to add things as we go along when they fit into the case, like the antifreeze. And there are going to be some things that don't fit into the case. And we're going to do our very best to put forth our best foot forward to bring this case to conclusion, because this is a historic case that's telling the government that you cannot poison people with impunity. The government has argued in this case that it is immune for the failure to warn. I want you all to understand that. They don't say that they're immune from poisoning itself, negligence itself, but they say that they're immune for the failure to warn you. That's an astonishing legal claim. Because what, you can just throw jet fuel and poison and antifreeze and PFAS and whatever you want in the water and then claim that you're not liable for failing to tell people what was in the water? That's an outrageous position, and I will shout that from the rooftops till there's no tomorrow. This case, though, isn't complicated. I mean, it's complicated because of all the things we've talked about. It's complex, but it's also simple. The government contaminated the water. Then the government didn't tell you not to drink it. You drank enough of it to get very sick and to be at risk of long-term harm, and or showered in it. By the way, external exposure is just as bad. And all of that is because the government made choices to allow that. And they didn't give a shit. And that's basically it, right? They didn't care. And that's what negligence is. It's the breach of a standard of care because you weren't careful. And the government wasn't careful. And this case is about giving them a chance to make it right. And that's what this case is about. We love the government. We love the United States. There were some very specific people here who breached the standard of care, and that gives you a right to bring a claim. And it's your right to bring that claim. Let me say it again, it's your right to bring that claim. It's like a tax rebate. This is what the government has allowed and wants. The Federal Tort Claims Act is designed for you, and we want to help you bring those claims. So we are here. We have electronic forms to sign if you want to sign electronically. we're happy to stay and answer all of your questions and let you guys talk some more. I know that there are questions in the chat, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to answer those questions in the chat. We're going to close out here because it's getting late and people have food in the background. I want to take a minute to thank Lyle and his team. Lyle is, when we called Lyle, we had no idea what an amazing partner he would be. We really wanted somebody who wanted to do this case. That was important to us because we called a lot of people who were kind of like, oh, maybe. And Lyle is the one who called us back and said, hey, what do I need to do? Do I need to come to Austin to hang out with you guys? And it was that call to us that showed us he wanted in, and we knew it was going to be a long haul, and we knew that we needed a partner who was going to be with us. And, you know, you're going to see other people come and go, but the three of us are going to be here until the bitter end because that's the promise that we made to each of you. So I'm going to respond to these questions online in the chat thing right now. I'm gonna let everybody here go get their food, and thank you for coming. Stay, talk to us. We have these folders. I want to also say online, whether we represent you or not, we truly want you to be well. And so we're happy to share all the resources that we've put together for you, including the list of all the, you know, top 100 studies about jet fuel, and or the list of medical care providers. We want you to be well, first and foremost. That's the most important thing to us. So thanks for coming, and to be continued.